Helps if you turn your microphone on. All right, so now welcome to a live Teach Tuesday video. So over the last week, CATL has made an attempt to gather up some questions and do this, hopefully it goes well, knock on wood, live Teach Tuesday video as a sort of Q&A of some of the questions that we received. So like I said, this is being live streamed, hopefully on YouTube. I'm sort of monitoring it on my phone here off to the side. And then my colleagues in CATL are going to text or email me if we run into issues. But hopefully everything works out. So like I said, we're doing sort of a Q&A video. We're going to post this after the fact as we do our normal Teach Tuesday videos. So you'll know that if you are watching that later. Kate just notified me that my microphone is now working. So I guess without further ado, and in fact this shows that it's a little bit loud. All right. A lot of the questions that we received fell under sort of the big umbrella of student work and what students can be doing as we're moving into this distance situation, for better or worse, hopefully slightly for better. So one particular point where we might want to start looking is we got a number of questions about how to set up an exam on Canvas. And so let's hop over to Canvas then and take a look. So here I have my a sample Canvas course. It is unpublished. You're going to want to make sure that your courses are published so that students can get to them. Sort of the first trap of Canvas. But Canvas doesn't have a separate spot for quizzes and exams and or tests, that sort of thing. It doesn't draw any distinction. It calls everything quizzes. So this course is pretty empty. There's just this one week 10 module with an overview in it, but that's there so that I can show you how you can add a quiz both to or an exam to both the quizzes area and then pop it in a module so that students can get to it by multiple means. So if we hop over to the quizzes tool, you see I have a couple here that I was playing around with. I'm going to delete that one because it's sort of in the way. And so I'm going to hit add a quiz. And like I said, Canvas doesn't care if it's an exam or a test or a quiz as someone might traditionally think of it, depending on what terms you use. But it does ask you if you want to use classic quizzes or new quizzes. And there's a little bit of description here of what those do, and there's more information out on the Canvas guides, which we'll link out to. But 9 times out of 10, you're going to want the classic quizzes, particularly if you're trying to do a multiple choice exam. So we'll call this exam 1. That's our first setting. There's really just 2 areas that you need to worry about, is the details and the questions. The first thing that you saw there was that I gave it a title, and then you can give it instructions. There you might type when the exam is going to be available, how long students are going to have to take it. That information will also be displayed to students when they go in to take the exam, but it's good to give them that information ahead of time. You want it to be a graded quiz, even though it's an exam, but what that does is it automatically creates something in the gradebook. So some people get a little bit confused because back in the day when we had D2L, you had to create the grade item and the exam separately and then link them together. In this case, anything that has points on it becomes a grade item in Canvas. All right. And then I have assignment groups set up. So in this case, I'm going to have it as an exam. If you don't already have your assignment groups set up, you can create that after the fact, and then I'll put this in there. Shuffle answers is whether you want the first, second, third, fourth, A, B, C, and D on the quiz questions to be shuffled for multiple choice questions. The trick there is if you ever have, it does it for every question on the exam, so if you ever have all of the above or none of the above, you don't want to check that box, because if you do, all of the above might be the first answer. All right. The time limit is where you can put how long the students should have to take the exam. That's once they start the exam to when they end the exam. If what you're thinking of as a time limit is actually a date range when they can take it, that setting is coming up. The options to let students see their quiz responses and have an indication of what their incorrect answers were, whether or not that can only be seen once after their attempt, or if you want to make that information available to students, including the correct answers, at a certain date range, so perhaps like the week after the exam, that sort of thing. For now, I'm going to leave it unchecked. Showing one question at a time does like it says. There aren't page breaks, so either it's all or just one question at a time. These options, typically skip them. And then the due date and the availability date. The due date is like it says. All that means is that if students take it after the due date, it will just be flagged as late. But availability is when they can actually log in to take the exam. So maybe I'm going to give them till Sunday night because I know that situations arise, but I'm going to make it due on Thursday night. And just tell them maybe up here in the quiz instructions that I want them to let me know if they have to take the exam at a different time. All right, I'm going to save it here, and then I'm going to go back in to edit it, just so that we can just take a quick look at this second tab where we create questions. You can create a new question here. Okay. By default, the first answer is correct. Right. To change what the correct answer is, you just click the little arrow next to it, okay, and then click to update the question, and it will create that question in the quiz. If you want to randomize your quiz, you do that using a question group. And then you put your questions in that group. Put one more question in here. And it's pretty easy to just drag and drop. Save the quiz. And so what that random section is doing, or what that group is doing, is it's pulling two questions from these two questions. So every student that takes the exam will get them in a different order. Okay. Once you've saved the exam, you have to make sure to publish it. And then if we go to our home page, students can go through quizzes to take the exam, but a lot of times we recommend that you also include it in modules where it's appropriate, so that if students are going through your course in sort of a linear way, it's there for them. Okay. What some people actually mean when they ask, how do I make an exam in Canvas, is how do I create an assignment? And this is if your exam is something like a Blue Book exam. And the settings are very similar, except you go through assignments instead of exams to set them up. You do add an assignment, give it a name and instructions, and here you can actually attach, if you have an assignment file, the number of points that it's worth, and so on. We're going to be doing another series of webinars next week where we'll go over some of this information. So I'm not going to dwell on it too much here. But in the event that what you're referring to is actually a sort of blue book exam, when you say exam, that's done in assignments rather than in quizzes, which is for multiple choice exams. Okay. So that was just a really quick overview, hopefully quick. It was under 10 minutes, I hope, of how to create, thanks, Todd, how to create a exam in Canvas. So another form of assessment, switching gears entirely, that we've been getting questions about is how to do end of semester presentations, which is a sort of, as you can expect, different animal entirely. And again, a lot of this information is going to be covered in our webinars next week. But Todd from the center was kind enough to put together a video presentation addressing this topic with an eye towards course objectives. And he also provides us with a pro tip for each of the options that he outlines. And so I'm going to switch over to Todd's video, hopefully, and I'm going to pop my headphones in so I can make sure that the audio is streaming correctly. So.
We got an email into the CATL inbox that says, "Hey CATL, I want to know the best way to do end of the semester presentations." That's a great question. I think a lot of people are in that same boat. And I think the answer to that question would be to look to your course learning objectives. If your learning objectives tended more towards extemporaneous public speaking style presentations, then I would definitely recommend using Blackboard Collaborate. The nice thing about Blackboard Collaborate is that you can record the sessions for students to view later who can't make it synchronously. And also, one other pro tip that I would give people would be to change the default role to students to presenters. So if you go down to the session settings, it says the default attendee role is participant. If you change that to presenter and click save, then all the students who enter will enter as presenters. You won't have to worry about changing things midstream. And then you can find those recordings here in the recording menu. I don't have any recordings here, but that's where you would typically find them. If your course learning outcomes tended towards summative evaluations of students, and this was a final presentation, what I would recommend doing that is having students put their videos, upload a video that they created into the course media gallery. And as you can see here, this is a still image of a course media gallery. All the videos sort of appear in one place, and then from a grading perspective, you would be able to see all the videos at once and kind of flip through them very easily, and students could also view each other's very easily as well. One pro tip for using the media gallery is that if you go to the settings for your course and then click on the navigation icon, you'll find the media gallery there, and what you want to do then is enable the media gallery and save it. And then it will appear for you and for your students in the course navigation bar, and students can add their videos as needed to the course media gallery. And then this is what it looks like for students to add their media, and then they would just pick from their available files to add. Finally, if your course outcomes were more along the lines of having the students provide feedback on their peers to do peer reviews of the presentations, then I would recommend having students put their videos of their presentations into a Canvas discussion. And then from there, they can add a video, as I'm doing here. And then this is what the video would look like once it's embedded in a Canvas discussion. One pro tip for using discussions as a form of student presentations is if you wanted to require peer review, you can do a peer review discussion. You just check that require peer reviews box, which appears under the edit screen for when you first created that discussion. Press save, and then now students would have to do a peer review of each other's for their discussions. So in sum, there's 3 different ways to do end of the semester presentations. You can have your students use Blackboard Collaborate if your course outcomes tend along the lines of public speaking and extemporaneous speaking. You could have students submit their videos to the course gallery if this is more of a summative assessment, or you could have students submit their videos to a discussion and then require peer review if what your course outcomes favor are peer reviews of each other's work. So that's how we would recommend doing peer reviews or doing end of the semester presentations.
Okay. So Kate sent me a quick message there to let me know that that actually did work. So I'm pleased. So thanks to Todd for putting that video together. And then, as Todd mentioned, many instructors are experimenting with Blackboard Collaborate, Collaborate Ultra. And so we've gotten a number of questions related to breakout groups on that particular platform. So Nathan, also from the center, put together a quick video as well about how to do breakout groups in Ultra. So hopefully this video plays as well as the last one.
Nathan from CATL. This week I'm addressing the question, I'd like to use breakout groups in Collaborate Ultra for those students that are able to attend my online discussions. What is the best way to do that? So there are a few things to consider before starting your small group discussion. First, does it matter who is in which group? So Collaborate allows you to randomly assign students to groups or manually assign them when you do your breakout groups. Another thing to consider is, will you be providing your students with resources to discuss? So, for example, a question or a scenario that you wouldn't expect them to remember in its entirety once you put them in the breakout groups. Basically, do they need to draw from memory, or will you be providing whatever resource they're going to work off of? So if you do want to provide them with something in a meeting, it is possible to share resources with each group. When you do this, I feel it's best to upload these resources to your meeting before you actually meet with your students. As long as you use the same room, you can upload the resources ahead of time, and this will save you sort of that dead time during class as you're doing those administrative tasks. So uploading the files ahead of time will eliminate that wasted time. Students can also share their own resources or collaborate on a whiteboard in the same way that you can as the room leader. A third thing to consider is whether or not you'll be dropping into each group throughout the discussion. Collaborate allows you to go into each group one at a time with a little bit of delay. So for me, it takes about 10 seconds to go from one group to another. Something else to think about is student participation in each group. And if this is a concern, you may want to have each group assign tasks to group members if it's that kind of collaboration. So for example, one person may be the leader, someone else reports out to the class when you reconvene, etc. Lastly, at some point you'll want to stop the group work and bring everyone together. Also, if you're recording your meeting for students that can't attend, please know that individual breakout group activity will not be included in the recording. Because everyone is moved into breakout groups, the main meeting area is what's being recorded, and it will be empty during that time. One last item to consider is that it is often forgotten in the chaos and excitement of using these new different tools to let your students know when you'll reconvene. Collaborate normally has a timer function, but it's been temporarily disabled in an effort to improve the quality of the online meeting experience. So you'll have to let your students know ahead of time about what time approximately you'll reconvene.
Okay. So thanks, Nathan. Those were some really good tips for synchronous work. I did make special note myself about the last point, having gotten used to having the timer in Collaborate to remind students, give them a time that you'll be coming back as a full group. And then to Todd's point in the last video, that this sort of group work works particularly well for a certain type of course. But that if you have larger scale, maybe semester-long group projects, that an ultra session might not do the trick. And so with reference to those sorts of questions, in order to keep large-scale group projects running smoothly, Kate Farley, this won't surprise you at this point in this live video, made a video for us addressing some of the things that we should think about in terms of facilitating group work in our courses using a group charter. So hopefully third time's a charm, and this video will work as well.
Hey everybody, this is Kate Farley from the Center for the Advancement of Teaching and Learning. I just wanted to cover a couple of questions that came into the CATL inbox this week about how to do group projects when you've started them in person and then have to transition to teaching remotely. So right now up on my screen I have an example of a group charter template, and this is just one of the things that you can do to make group work a little more streamlined. It helps students know what the expectations are of each other when they're in a group. So you can have them fill this out and then have it be a deliverable as a part of your project. So right here I just have like what a team charter does. You can have the students articulate what their team purpose is. So that might be like their research question that they're thinking about investigating. You can have them set time commitments and duration of those expectations. So you can set like major deliverable deadlines in this area, like when they have to have this group charter filled out and turned into you. And then it's kind of like a contract between the group members so that they know what's expected of each other. You can also have them list what their best method of contact is for each other. And you can do some other things too, like create team member profiles where you can have students list what their skills and assets are, as well as some areas for growth. This might be particularly relevant right now because students could list what their stressors are. So for some students it might be, I'm really stressed about missing deadlines, so I need my group mates to let me know what's going on in their lives so that we can plan accordingly. And you can also designate roles within your group charter. So these are just some examples of ones that we've seen in other classes that have worked well. So this is like separate from the content generation for the project, where students all contribute to the content, but then they can split out other responsibilities like being the timekeeper when they are meeting, or who's going to be the citation checker. And ideally, all students would be able to do that, but it might be helpful to designate certain roles. There's also, it's a good idea to have students articulate what their communication plan is. So for their everyday communications, it might be a good idea to say, okay, we're going to email each other and then CC everybody. But then when we start actually generating content, we're going to draft that in a separate area, like maybe in Office 365 or in Google Docs. Some other things that you could do is to set deliverable and tasks timelines. So this might be really helpful to use in conjunction with an assignment that was planned using purpose, task, and criteria. And that's some of the transparency workshop resources that we have available. So I'll make sure that a link for that is available in this Teach Tuesday video. One thing that might also be really helpful right now is about how students can manage unforeseen events and conflict. So you could ask them to articulate what their plan is when things don't go exactly as they had anticipated. Another thing that you can do is to use the tools that are built within Canvas. So I'm just over here on this sandbox page that I have for a course that I use to test. And one thing that you can do is set up groups within Canvas, and then students will see, once you have a group set up, they'll see what their group enrollment is over here on this groups tool in the global navigation bar. So if I'm in one of these content expert groups, and then these are like the subgroup names, then students can see their group members over here in this groups tool. Another thing that I have pulled up right now is this Canvas student guide. So these are frequently asked questions that the Canvas support desk has put together. So if you know that you're going to be using the groups tool and the people tool, it might be helpful to link to this area in the student Canvas guides. So the questions that they ask are like listed here. So sometimes it's a little difficult for students to get used to using the groups tool because it kind of creates like a mini course within a course. And what that does is it allows students the space to be able to upload documents and share them with each other, as well as create discussions. So you could use the groups tool as a project management tool as well. So those were just a few quick things that I thought of that might be helpful for group work. And ideally, you just want to make sure that you're using really clear and transparent language for group projects so that students know what's expected of them. And then you're ultimately going to get a better project if students know exactly what you're looking for. So if you need this document, I'll provide it in the Teach Tuesday email. And I think that's everything. And then we'll see you at the Teach Tuesday live session.
Okay, so thanks, Kate. It was a lot of really good information. And then all of those resources, of course, are available to you. And then I have a note here to myself to fumble around and blabber for a minute about resources available and the upcoming webinars. So I will do that now. So we do have, if you go to the DLE login page, of course we have our some quick links to the COVID-19 resources in particular, but as sort of a refresher of any of the Canvas specific materials, you can always chat with Canvas support, or if you're the kind of person that likes to read the manual, it's available here. There's also an orientation for students, and then if you'd like a consultation with us, you can reach out to us with this form here, or just email catl@uwgb.edu. Speaking of reaching out to Canvas support, we had over 200, or Canvas had over 200 contacts over the past couple of weeks with Canvas-related issues. Everything from like the smallest, how I forgot to publish my course, where's the button, to what we went over, how to create an exam. So it's great to see that people are using that as a resource. And then in addition to that, we do have the Teaching Remotely section on the remote support page with a lot of great resources, and soon to be posted there as of this live session, and hopefully by the time this is up on YouTube to watch after the fact, we'll have the schedule of the upcoming webinars that I referenced near the beginning, which will also cover some of the other things that Kate, Nathan, and Todd talked about in their videos. So I think that's it for now. And thanks for watching. Thanks to those who submitted questions. The the link to submit questions is still live and out there, and we'll be sending that out in further communications. I don't recall if it's on the description for this video, but we'll put it there if we can figure out how to do that. And then we did get a couple of questions that were course specific. Essentially, people were asking for consultations, which, as always, we're very happy to do. Either, like I said, email us or hop over to the consultation requests button here. We're offering all of our normal CATL services just as everybody is remotely for now. So, like I said, thanks for watching, and stay tuned for the time for the next Teach Tuesday Live. I think it'll be a little bit later in the morning next week. So thanks again to Todd, Nathan, and Kate for putting together their video segments, and we will, I guess, virtually see you next time. Thanks for watching.